Holy shit. He said what?
Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
It was a dreadful thing to do and actually completely wrong. He is quite hard and harsh.
He became hypersensitive and blamed the media for the crashes of his relationships.
People like Meghan will always stay with the man if there's no better option.
What if the future of the British monarchy, an institution built on bloodlines, tradition, and history, was being questioned, not because of politics or war, but because two people turned royal duty into a streaming pitch? Because that's exactly where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have pushed the crown. This is the same couple who once begged the world to respect their privacy, yet somehow never stopped turning their personal lives into a non-stop PR show. Cameras rolling, deals dropping, stories spinning, the circus never closes. But when it comes to the single most important detail, who their children are and how those details are presented to the public, suddenly it's silence. Just staged smiles, mixed messages, and carefully controlled appearances that explain nothing. Meghan entered the royal family like a Hollywood star auditioning for the role of her lifetime. And Harry followed her out of the palace like a loyal understudy, ditching centuries of tradition for California photo ops and podcast deals nobody was asking for. They rebranded themselves as victims, as rebels, as modern icons standing up to a cold institution, yet all they've really done is cash in on the family name while dodging the most basic expectation of public clarity. That's not bravery, that's branding. Now, with Angela Levin publicly raising questions that demand clearer answers about Archie and Lilibet's early narrative,
Meghan is using everything for publicity and not really truly there. We know how she treats her family and friends.
the carefully built wall of excuses is starting to crack. These are not accusations, they are unanswered questions, and silence only keeps them alive. Harry's loud threats of lawsuits don't scream confidence, they sound like panic. Meghan's continued silence doesn't look like grace or dignity either. It feels strategic, measured, and intentionally distant. The couple who thought they could outplay the monarchy now look trapped by the one thing they tried to outrun: accountability. And make no mistake, this moment isn't just about them. It's about whether the crown can withstand the chaos they left behind. Then came their wedding anniversary, a date once guaranteed to spark headlines and glossy releases. People expected the usual Netflix-style rollout, maybe a dramatic, still relevant moment. Instead, nothing. No tributes, no buzz, no backup from Hollywood friends. Just silence, loud, awkward, and impossible to ignore. The silence wasn't golden, it was final. And that's the irony. For a couple who once sold themselves as bold rebels rewriting the royal rulebook, they've now faded into the background like yesterday's tabloid headline. Meghan, the self-styled Duchess of Disruption, couldn't even pull together a polished Instagram moment to sell the idea that the fairy tale was still alive.
Diana treated her children. It was very important to care about people and not to think about themselves, and that money didn't matter very much. What did matter was to look after people.
Harry, meanwhile, looked less like a prince and more like a man realizing his grand royal exit led straight into a quiet California cul-de-sac. The same couple who once demanded non-stop attention suddenly found themselves ignored. Their anniversary came and went, without noise, without buzz, without impact, reduced to a footnote no one bothered to click. And if that silence wasn't uncomfortable enough, it set the stage for something far worse. Because when the cameras stop flashing and the flattering headlines disappear, reality steps in, and this time it came with teeth. That's when Angela Levin stepped forward with a statement so sharp it cut deeper than any insult ever could. She didn't soften her tone. She didn't tiptoe. She spoke with the confidence of someone who's watched the royal machine for decades. When Levin spoke, the royal world stopped pretending everything was fine. She challenged the glossy image Harry and Meghan had been holding on to, questioning the public narrative they carefully built around their family story. She raised concerns many people had quietly wondered about, but were too cautious to say out loud. Not accusations, but unanswered questions. Questions about why certain details surrounding Archie and Lilibet's early narrative were handled differently than tradition had ever seen. Suddenly, the couple who branded themselves around our truth found that truth turned back on them. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Their credibility was already shaky after stalled projects and fading influence.
She is so odious, it's beyond belief.
Absolute media manipulation. But I thought tonight this was really ridiculous. These are two real imposters.
Levin's comments didn't create doubt, they amplified it. Instead of the warm image of devoted parents, the conversation shifted to secrecy, control, and missing clarity. Levin didn't speak with malice, she spoke with experience. She framed what she said as questions the public deserved answers to. Why were standard royal traditions absent? Why was transparency replaced with managed silence? And, in the world of royalty, silence screams louder than any denial. Levin's remarks weren't gossip. They were a direct challenge to legitimacy, the kind that can't be brushed off with a glossy interview or a streaming special. This wasn't a moment that could be hidden behind palace walls or California gates. It was the beginning of a storm too big to spin away. Prince Harry, once a soldier who claimed he could handle anything, seemed to crack the moment people started asking questions. Instead of calmly addressing the chatter with facts, he reached for the oldest royal reflex in the book. Lawyers, threats to sue, full stop. This is the same man who said he fled the palace to escape toxic media, yet now leans on legal muscle every time the story slips out of his grip. That's not growth. That's panic dressed up as power. And here's the wild part. Legal threats don't shut rumors down. They supercharge them.
What I discovered was, of course, that she was hunting for a man in England from 2013 onwards, when her marriage had crashed and she couldn't find anyone in Canada at the time. And she wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt, she targeted Harry.
The second Harry aimed his fury at critics, public sympathy didn't kick in. People didn't say, "Poor Harry." They said, "What's he trying to shut down?" A confident leader, a secure father, would have closed the book with clarity. Instead, Harry looked heated, reactive, and cornered, less like a man in control, and more like a celebrity watching the narrative spin without him. And where was Meghan? The so-called fearless partner, the public warrior, the master of messaging, gone. Leaving Harry swinging in the dark, firing off threats that only made the situation worse. The harder he pushed, the weaker it looked. Every legal warning didn't erase the story, it kept it alive. And that's the brutal irony. In trying to silence critics, he amplified them. Anger without facts isn't strength, it's desperation. And that desperation didn't bury the conversation, it spread it everywhere. Then the discussion hit a breaking point with three letters people kept mentioning: DNA. Not as an accusation, but as the simplest way speculation could end instantly. Proof, not press releases, facts, not footage. Commentators, journalists, even former supporters began saying the same thing. Clarity matters. Not glossy specials, not staged moments, not controlled images, just transparency. And once again, there was silence. A silence so loud it redirected attention, not toward the children themselves, but toward the public narrative surrounding them. When questions surround presentation instead of facts, doubt fills the gap, and the Sussex silence let that doubt grow unchecked.
Buckingham Palace is being pressured to remove Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet from the UK's royal line of succession until the Duchess provides absolute proof that she popped out both babies herself.
What was meant to symbolize legacy and continuity suddenly became part of a much larger conversation, not about family, but about trust, image control, and credibility. And once credibility slips, no amount of legal pressure can pull it back. The possibility alone was enough to shake the idea of succession, because in the royal world, clarity matters. Without it, rank and placement turn into smoke and mirrors, not facts. Meanwhile, Prince Harry paced and fumed like a man backed into a corner. Yet he still dodged the simplest exit imaginable. One test, one answer, one moment of certainty. Instead, he doubled down on secrecy, pulling Meghan Markle deeper into public suspicion. And Meghan, silent, watching Harry struggle while she stayed tucked in the shadows. Every unanswered question, every sidestep, only fueled the belief that the Sussexes had more to protect than they'd ever admit. DNA became a symbol, not an accusation, but a solution they refused to touch. For centuries, royal mothers followed an unwritten script: birth, brief public acknowledgement, and transparency for the nation watching. Kate Middleton did it 3 times, exhaustion and all, because duty came first. Meghan tossed that script straight in the trash. Instead of clarity, the public got confusion. Vanishing acts, carefully staged moments, awkward photo releases. Even her pregnancy narrative felt tightly controlled, edited, and oddly theatrical. It looked less like royal responsibility and more like a reality TV cliffhanger.
Silence everybody and just produce a DNA sample or proof of delivery.
Harry stood beside her, smiling like a sidekick, hoping no one would notice the gaps in the story. But people noticed. They clocked the odd camera angles, the missing medical confirmations, the lack of familiar signals that once reassured the public. Those gaps didn't prove anything, but they invited speculation. Soon, whispers took over. Not facts, whispers about image control, about narrative management, about a couple obsessed with branding instead of openness. Meghan, who marketed herself as the queen of authenticity, started looking artificial. Harry, who mocked conspiracies, suddenly looked trapped inside one. By throwing tradition aside, they didn't modernize the monarchy. They weakened it. Every inconsistency poured gasoline on a fire. They started themselves. Silence didn't calm doubts. It locked them in place. This is where gossip turns dangerous. When secrecy replaces tradition, legitimacy takes a hit. A monarchy survives on continuity and trust, on clear lines, not cloudy stories. When presentation matters more than proof, the institution suffers. The Sussex choices didn't just raise eyebrows, they rattled the foundation.
In this case, about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump, the fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Archie.
Meghan's silence stopped reading as strength and started sounding like avoidance. Harry, born into privilege but resistant to its weight, now looked less like an asset and more like a risk. And once the crown looks unstable, no PR, no lawyers, no streaming deals can glue it back together. It's self-inflicted. Every tantrum, every legal threat makes Prince Harry look less like a proud father and more like a man guarding something fragile. Not confident, not steady, just reactive and rattled. The longer the Sussexes dodge transparency, the more public doubt hardens into belief. And this isn't just about 2 children. It's about whether a monarchy can function when questions cling to the line of succession at every turn. That shadow doesn't stop with Harry and Meghan. It stretches straight toward the throne. And Angela Levin didn't just drop her remarks and disappear. She doubled down. She warned that if Harry drags this mess into court, the consequences could be brutal. Courtrooms don't care about titles, branding deals, or streaming contracts. They want facts. Records, verifiable proof. For a couple obsessed with controlling the narrative, the thought of a judge forcing clarity into the open has to feel like a nightmare. Levin hinted she knows more, far more, holding it back like ammo waiting for the right moment.
But if she hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. They have to have royal blood, those little ones. Without that, there's no chance of them becoming a member of the royal family.
And while Harry swings wildly at critics, the real damage keeps piling up in plain sight. Media companies that once chased the Sussex name are backing away. Deals are cooling. Credibility is leaking fast. The so-called golden couple of Montecito is starting to look like a risky investment. Meghan, who styled herself as Hollywood royalty, is watching doors quietly shut. Harry, who believed his birthright guaranteed influence, is learning a hard truth. A name means nothing when trust disappears. Levin's warning wasn't personal, it was strategic. A spotlight on an empire slowly unraveling. If clarity is ever forced through legal channels, this won't be a PR loss. It could be total collapse. One truth remains unavoidable. The future tied to the Sussex children isn't just a private family matter. It's a constitutional pressure point. Monarchies survive on continuity and trust, on clear lines, not blurred narratives. Without transparency, every title becomes a question mark, and a crown built on question marks cannot stand. Meghan, once marketed as the modern savior of the monarchy, now looks like someone weakening its foundation. Her silence doesn't read as noble, it reads as calculated. Harry, once the cheeky prince people adored, now looks like a man raging at shadows, waving threats instead of answers. He doesn't look powerful, he looks scared, and nothing threatens a monarchy more than a prince who appears afraid of the truth. If institutions are ever forced to step in, the fallout won't just hit Harry and Meghan, it could shake the entire system. Imagine it. Courtrooms, records, legal scrutiny, dragging royal mystique into harsh daylight. And once that curtain lifts, there's no pulling it closed again. One simple test could shut all of this down, instantly, yet it's treated like the truth itself would burn their entire empire to ash. And maybe that's exactly why they keep running. Because deep down, exposure might wipe out the last scraps of credibility they're still clinging to. And if you think this scandal is shocking, trust me, you haven't seen the full picture yet. We already broke down how Meghan and Harry's glossy media empire was falling apart long before Angela Levin ever spoke up. That story changes everything. Don't miss that video. It's the missing piece that shows just how deep this downfall really goes. Click it now and see exactly why their so-called new beginning is speeding straight toward a brutal ending. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think is really going on. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.